Welcome everybody to the iconic BT Tower. I am delighted to be able to host on behalf of BT what I'm sure will be an incredibly stimulating and energetic discussion. The future of Wi-Fi in a 5G era, and indeed the implications and opportunities for connected cities, for enterprises and for carriers, is a fascinating topic. I lead the ventures organisation within BT, a team that was set up 2.5 years ago to be a place where our smaller businesses could flourish and where we could get new disruptive growth started. And within our team of 3,000 people, we've played a small part in the advancement of this agenda with the rollout of InLink, which offers free Wi-Fi, free calls, and indeed other smart city applications that feed connected cities across the UK, now live in 10 London boroughs and 12 cities. That's probably enough of me. It is my very great pleasure to hand over to Martin Warwick, the Editor-in-Chief of TelecomTV, who is going to introduce the panellists and start the discussion.
Thanks, Nick. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the theatre in the BT Tower here in central London. I'm Martin Warwick, Editor-in-Chief of TelecomTV, and I'm the moderator of this Wireless Global Congress Power Panel, hosted by BT and sponsored by GlobalReach. The subject for the discussion is Convergence, the future of Wi-Fi in the 5G era for connected cities, enterprise and carriers. We have this being a power panel, we have a powerful panel of speakers who are raring to get their teeth into the discussion. So without any further ado, let me introduce them. On my left is J.R. Wilson, who is AT&T VP and the chairman of the WBA. Next to him is Julie Snell, Managing Director of Bristol is Open, the sole lady on the panel. Welcome, Julie. Thanks for being here. Next, again, on her left, is Chris Bruce, GlobalReach Managing Director. Then Paul Crane, BT Director of Converged Network Research. And finally, last but by no means least, way down there, just about in sight, is Derek Peterson, the CTO of Boingo and the WBA co-chairman. Right, that's the introductions done and the tricky bit. Let's get to the meat of this, which is, JR, I want to start with you with this question. What part do you think Wi-Fi will play in the development of a 5G system? And what about other technologies and indoor-outdoor capabilities?
So here's kind of the way I think about it. So Wi-Fi is imperative. We have to have it, in part because there's millions of devices that don't have cellular chipset. We've been having this debate, kind of cellular versus Wi-Fi. Will one cannibalize the other for a long time? The two are complementary. They have to coexist together because take IoT, for example, and those millions of devices, again, that don't have they're not cellular enabled. I haven't heard anyone talking about 5G, not including IoT. So you absolutely have to have it. And then how I think that that fits into the broader 5G arena is if I've got all these hotspots, millions and millions of hotspots around the globe that I know that I have to support all these non-cellular applications, whether it's tablets, IoT, etc., then I want to be able to leverage those assets. So the natural progression for Wi-Fi was next generation hotspot and passpoint, which makes it a layer 2 technology, so it's seamless, secure, interoperable, and it'll evolve to 5G. And when it becomes part of 5G, then I think you got to ask yourself, well, if I've got that Wi-Fi infrastructure there that looks, feels, and touches just like any other radio access network, 5G otherwise, it's high speed, it's low latency, should I really go invest small cell there? Should I really invest in DAS? It just makes sense as being part of the overall ecosystem. Certainly there's going to be other technologies. AT&T, obviously, we're very much on the GSM path with LTE, VoLTE, 5G, LTE-M, low power wide area networks we see as being a critical part of the ecosystem as well.
Thank you. I'm going to stay with you for one more question before we throw it further open. That was the techie side of it. What about the business case for 5G? Is it fully established now, do you think? And what part does Wi-Fi play in it, particularly in terms of return on investment?
Yeah, so So why do we go 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G? And I think it always goes back to three things. You're either improving the customer experience, you're improving your cost structure, or you're driving a new revenue stream. Ideally, all three components have to happen. When I think 5G, I think two of them are pretty well baked. The third one still yet to come. So with new technology, just like going 3G to 4G, the efficiency you get on the network, you're able to produce a lot more bits. And in this case, we're talking gigabytes, terabytes, exabytes, et cetera, for a lot less cost. So that part of the business case, I think people feel pretty comfortable about. Certainly, you're talking about a faster network, lower latency. That improves the customer experience. We all like that. Better customer experience, hopefully more customers. On the revenue side, you hear about, different use cases, VR glasses and being able to take a lot of electronics away because it'll be in the cloud and operating on low latency network. I don't think anyone's hanging their hat on VR glasses. Like, that's why we're building the 5G network. Obviously, autonomous cars, but you have to have the capability in order to have the use case. If you don't have the capability, the use case never gets developed. So, and I think that's part of what makes 5G so exciting. As far as Wi-Fi and the cost structure, again, if I've got that existing infrastructure and through organizations like the WBA, who's really driving a lot of the work to be able to make Wi-Fi part of 5G, seamless, secure, interoperable, look, feel, and touch, why would I not leverage those assets? And again, I need them for IoT and so many other things.
Quite an answer. Julie, do you agree with that?
Okay.
is the business case for 5G fully established?
For me, the jury's still out. So I'm going to speak more from a point of view of running a smart city infrastructure and having to lay one out in a city. And the jury's still out on that business case for me. I think for me, if you're running a great big sports stadium and you're broadcasting the Olympics and you're going multiple streaming at the same time, yeah, the case is clear. That's really it. But when you come down to day-to-day, solving the current issues, having the technology and the devices, etc., I still don't think it's there. For us as a city, for me, it's a staged environment. Yes, we're doing all those experiments with 5G on the VR glasses and live streaming. You're right, it doesn't make the business case. I'm probably going to get shot at home for saying that. We are doing.
It gives me a headache. Don't tell anyone I say.
Yeah. And we're doing some work around, safety and cameras around our city. Bristol's a city full of lots of harbours, as you know, and we do have a problem with students drinking, and funnily enough, these have this habit of falling into the harbour, and actually, unfortunately, that leads to very serious problems. We've lost a lot of young people in our city, so we're actually looking at sort of CCTV broadcasts with virtual lines alerting us in real time, that someone's crossed that line, they've probably dropped into the water. This is that metre square, because if it isn't that metre square that we're searching, we're not recovering a person, we're recovering a body. It's that serious. So we're testing that in Bristol at the moment, but would that make a valid total business case? Possibly not. For me, the difference is, in fact, we're using high bandwidth fibre behind it, and we're using high quality Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is the key to it at the moment. I think it's a bit of a staging. I think it's 5G for me is a multiple of different platforms, and each platform will find its business case as we move on. But right now, well, this is probably the jury's still out.
Okay, anyone else would like to add to that?
Yeah,
please.
I think you have to distinguish between 5G as an overall concept and 5G new radio, and people get the two mixed up. And as JR said, you've got to look at the use cases, and different technologies are going to be more applicable for different types of use cases. And if you look at the specifications for the IEEE have set for the latest variants of Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 6, and you compare that with the 3GPP target specifications for 5G, overlay the two, and as you know, 5G overall is trying to address many things: low latency, high throughput, high density. Actually, you find that Wi-Fi 6 will address some of those use cases as well, if not better, than 5G new radio. But it's not a question of which is better than the other. It's actually, from an operator's point of view, how do you put that together to create the experience for the user or the thing that's going to actually deliver the performance at the price that the operator and the customer can afford.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else want to add more to it? I thought you might know.
Yeah, I'll add one thing. I think one of the things that we've been going through in the last, call it 20 years or so, is the digital transformation of a lot of our businesses. And we're in that next stage of that transformation where we're realizing that artificial intelligence and other capabilities are going to end up helping us steer beyond that. And so that's where 5G and the capabilities of 5G, I think, are really important. Those use cases are going to flush out. And then we'll get into 6G and quantum intelligence and all of those new things that you're going to be talking about, next. And I think that the key thing is that insatiable desire for more control, more capability to be able to solve problems that were shared. That's really what we're aiming for with these new technologies, is being able to find new ways to solve the problems that ail us, and having the connectivity to be able to do that, along with all the other things that come with 5G, the NFV and SDN and all those other things are going to help bridge the gap that's required to realize what we're trying to create.
Paul, you've been quiet so far.
Sorry, I jumped.
No, it's fine. No.
It doesn't have to be in order.
Running a research department, I'm not prepared to say 6G yet, so I'm glad someone else did. I think that the original question was about business case, and it's not fully formed, and it's not going to be, because a lot of the ambitions for 5G, the use cases are nascent. Okay, they rely on 5G being the enabler, and things will develop, and they'll probably develop in completely different ways to what we're anticipating. But those three basic tenets of 5G of that, high bandwidth, the low latency and high reliability, and the support for IoT, those are providing the fundamental enablers for you, as you were saying, that next layer of digitization, and reflecting on what you were saying, so bringing that together with other computer science developments, AI being the one that flavored at the moment, you can see that there's potential massive transformational change with those technologies coming together. Visual analytics, not only telling if someone's actually gone across a line, but being able to say who it is before they actually fall in the water. Okay, that sort of thing, I think, is going to be transformative.
Can we talk about practical terms, and how will Wi-Fi be integrated in what is being referred to as the 5G umbrella? What are we talking about here? Is it the 802.11ax standard, Wi-Fi 6, has already been mentioned? What are its benefits? What are its limitations as far as service enablement is concerned? And what pieces of the jigsaw are we still missing as far as complete, full convergence between Wi-Fi and next generation Wi-Fi is concerned? I don't know who'd like to take that on first. I could nominate someone, but
I can start, since I've got convergence in the job title. So I can talk about this from the operator's perspective. Convergence is more than just converging the Wi-Fi and cellular, so you've got a seamless experience for the end user. I mean, that's kind of given. What we're talking about is bringing together some other technologies which will enable full convergence of networks, and the fundamental one is virtualization. So virtualizing the core network, so we're no longer buying appliances from the big vendors, some of which are in the room, but buying standard compute platforms with software instances on them. And that gives us the ability then to move that software around in the network depending on where we actually want it. And it also gives us then the ability to build services on top of that on a bespoke basis. And in industry, that's generally known as network slicing. Okay, so we may have got a fixed slice, a mobile slice, and a converged slice. And that converged slice, for example, to smartphone users, could support, say, with a simple example, at the moment, if you've got fixed broadband and mobile broadband, your parental controls will be different. Okay, now that's pretty daft, isn't it? So why not have the same parental controls on your fixed and mobile? So bringing those functionality together on that converged slice across the network. Now, that's the core network aspects of it. Does that require a new Wi-Fi standard? Probably not. Okay. It's really interesting from a technology point of view how Wi-Fi and cellular are feeding off each other. AX has adopted some radio techniques from cellular networks, and previous generations of cellular have adopted techniques from Wi-Fi networks. So they're kind of going up in parallel. But I think that convergence aspect is more than just the radio access network. It's bringing the whole thing together. So you've got that seamless customer experience.
So I'll add to that, because I wrote a convergence manifesto a couple of years ago, so I don't have it in my title, but I have that. So one of the things, in the convergence manifesto we talked about was the collaboration required to make it happen. And that collaboration isn't just a technical collaboration, it's also a business collaboration. And I think that's very important for us to recognize 5G. So when we talk on the film we have here, it says connected cities, enterprises, and carriers. We really want all of that to be able to be connected together and collaborate together so we can create these kind of converged ecosystems of business and technology really working together to drive that forward. And to the question of Wi-Fi and 5G and 6H or whatever, to make some jokes of the future. Yeah, that's what JR was telling me earlier.
It's always going to be fun.
But as we move that forward, one of the key things that's going to require us also to do is that we focus on that collaboration of really working together. And that's why you'll see at the WBA, we have a group of a lot of different ecosystem partners. We have vendors as well as operators, large MSOs, and then small neutral host network providers like Boingo participating in being able to drive these standards forward for this collaborative environment.
And probably just to say, at the WBA Congress this week, in fact today, our friends from Korea Telecom have delivered an AX Wi-Fi 6 experience for the delegates. It's the first time I've connected to a Wi-Fi 6 network. So it's not a futuristic thing, it's here and now. And we've been able to connect seamlessly to that network securely. And that can be an important part of a converged network going forward. And from an operator point of view, if you could manage your CapEx so that you've got a hybrid of 5G and Wi-Fi, and you got your average cost per antenna down as a result, well, that would help your business case, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Julie, much of what my next question was going to be has been preempted and in this previous one, because there's been quite a lot of discussion about it, but I take it you agree that convergence is about more than just radio access?
Yes, it is. Right? Convergence, particularly from a point of view of a city, is about every piece working together, and it's integrally working together. So for us, that the dream, and I can remember when we started the WBA 15 years ago, our dream was convergence from whatever wireless technology as you moved around, and absolutely reiterate the point that your connectivity at home or your fixed fibre and your mobile and your wireless connectivity wherever you are, whatever you're doing, actually being seamless is absolutely key going forward, because as much as an individual can manage those settings on their device, we start moving into the AI world and Internet of Things, those devices won't be messing about with that. You need them to be able to just take that connection. You've got your autonomous car driving down the road, it's going to need to just be able to pass off to whatever network's there, because radio interference will be an issue in cities, which means we will have a balance of every spectrum and every piece. And I still do believe, as I did in the very beginning, Wi-Fi is fundamental to it, because it's the only way you're going to make the business case stack up, because the spectrum and the bandwidth that's used in the carrier world is an expensive resource, and if you can make sure that is offloaded via your Wi-Fi, and then you've got that fibre backbone behind it. Fibre is absolutely critical, and in the UK, I absolutely implore everybody to please get more fibre out there. Get the fibre in the ground, and we can roll out 5G in whatever form it is.
Thank you. JR, you were...
I agree with that, but I would add, so like today, if I need a gigabyte in my house to support all the different things that I have hanging off of that, it's fiber. 5G fundamentally changes that. When you move to an environment where you can have a gigabyte plus through your wireless plane. I mean, you think about the reach and the scope and the impact that that has on cities, on households, etc. So the terrestrial network has been, and look, fiber is important, it fuels all of this. At the same time, the wireless network's going to look a lot more like what you depend and rely and expect from fiber or terrestrial networks, and I think that's a pretty big shift.
Thank you. We've looked at things from a tech point of view and a business case, etc. What about the end user, the user experience, as far as Wi-Fi and its convergence with 5G? What's the end user? What's the guy with the device, the girl with the device, going to get? What are they going to experience that will make them say, "Wow, this is worth doing and worth paying the premium for"?
Yeah, the key for me is that the experience doesn't change. It's the same experience, and they don't think about whether I'm on 5G cellular, Wi-Fi, or some other access technology. So it looks completely access agnostic. And then going back to what Paul said, it's taking that next step where sometimes if you're on one radio access network or one radio access network technology versus another, you have a disparate customer experience, and it has to be a consistent customer experience across the board. I think we start to get to a point actually where people think less about whether or not they're on a Wi-Fi network because it just becomes so integrated and so seamless and piece of the puzzle.
Chris?
Well, just reflecting on the mission of the WBA, it's always been about the user experience, whether it was roaming or whether it was a hotspot to passpoint connection seamlessly and securely. And I envisage that the WBA, working with other bodies in the cellular industry, will be working to bring this together so that the user's experience is seamless, whether that be a person or a thing. And it might not even be Wi-Fi, it might also be low-power networks as well.
Paul?
Yeah, so from an end user experience, wouldn't it be great if it was just completely seamless, that you didn't have to worry about what network you were connected to? It just happened, and you got the most appropriate or the best experience available for between a Wi-Fi or a cellular network, or both simultaneously. And the network capacity was just there that enabled you to do what you wanted to do at the time you wanted to do it. And I think that's the overriding ambition of integrating Wi-Fi, which is potentially high capacity but in areas where people are stationary, okay, with a cellular network which is high capacity but generally where people are actually moving. Having those two things integrated together, and that integration and the problems of that hidden from the customer, I think is the goal.
Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything everyone said. I think one of the things that I think about with the user experience is we think about it today. We think about those connections like everybody's talking about, and those connections that we're thinking about shape how we interact with our world around us. Once you take those interactions, that thinking about it out, now all of a sudden you're free for those interactions to become more useful. I don't have to try to remember your name. I'm going to see it somewhere. It's going to be interfaced somehow with me personally. Instead of I'm grabbing a phone and looking down to try to experience the connection, I'm going to have new ways of being able to experience that connection that don't keep me on a small screen and allow me to actually be a part of the society that I want to be a part of, that's trying to improve my life. And I think that that's really what it's about, is bringing connectivity to make immersive experiences. And this is not immersive, right? That's detracting, and we want it to be a part of us. So we need to build those user experiences so we can have those immersive experiences in everything that we do.
Thank you. Julie, I mean, you're at the sharp end of this.
Yes, absolutely everything that's been said, totally agree and support. And I guess being on the sharp end, as you put it at the moment, my challenge is how I sell this to the City Council and all the other stakeholders in the city to get them to embrace this. And they're still very much bogged down, as Derek has already said, in, they think of it as a device, and they think they're going to think about it in this connectivity. And trying to move them away from that, and trying to get the authorities to think about how their services can be delivered more efficiently, through the use of this, through the medical, the social care. All these things are absolutely critical, but it does come down to, for me, moving it away from being connected to a device to people just being immersed in that technology. That, for me, will be the utopia.
Thank you. We've looked at the technology, we've looked at business case, we've looked at the potential end user and the potential experience. How about putting a timetable on this? Is there a timetable? For example, will Wi-Fi help accelerate 5G capabilities into the network next year or the year after? Anybody willing to take a punt?
You mean ubiquitously, or you just mean availability?
Your choice.
Well, you're seeing it today. There's examples of it happening today. There's 5G trials being done by most operators. Yeah. And if you look at most of the 5G trials that are being done, I mean, we've got one that's going to be starting here pretty soon at an airport. When you look at those 5G trials that are happening, Wi-Fi is a part of it. Right? In most cases that I've looked at, there's maybe 5G coming into your home, but your devices that are connecting inside that home are primarily, a lot of them are Wi-Fi. So that collaboration, or that is happening today with 5G and with Wi-Fi, and it will continue. I think the key thing is it will continue to be more and more ubiquitous as we work out some of the collaborative efforts across the different companies and the different technology.
Chris?
Well, I'm reflecting on the Wireless Broadband Alliance report that's going to come out tomorrow, and I've seen a sneak preview of some statistics around how both Wi-Fi 6 and 5G shipments and installations will grow in the next 3-4 years, and we're talking about tens and hundreds of millions of antennas being deployed over the next 3 years. In quite an interesting deployment, where actually, from the research I've seen, the Wi-Fi is more than a factor of sort of 10 to 1. But I see that those two will come together, where actually you'll bring the two together. So in terms of can they help each other, yes, but there's a bit of work to be done to deliver the network slicing platforms that Paul was talking about.
Yeah, so there's still, for that full picture, there's still work that needs to be done, particularly in the standards groups. So in 3GPP, there's some study items at the moment which are looking at that full integration of Wi-Fi into a 5G system from a carrier's perspective. So we would expect to see those standardised in Release 16, so September next year.
September next year?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll hold you to that.
That was when the standards were available.
Joe, what do you think from the US perspective?
Yeah, so if you look at on the just 5G cellular side, so just a couple days ago, AT&T launched its first 5G device, which is a Netgear Nighthawk 5G mobile hotspot. So first one out, but think like gigabyte type speed, so super, super fast. In terms of Wi-Fi, I think largely in part because of the work that we've done, we've created a natural glide path for Wi-Fi as part of 5G, because with next generation hotspot and with passpoint technology, we have made it a layer 2 technology. So at least the seamless authentication, obviously more secure, not reaching the bandwidth levels, the latency yet that we'll see in 5G. And then there's got to be the integration. And the integration is going to be a really important part of it, because I think of, I put myself in your shoes, Julie, and like one of the things I work on at AT&T is FirstNet, which is building the first responder network. And the example you gave is how critically important it is to have real-time data. And a first responder network is going to have, on the cellular side, it'll have priority and preemption for our first responders. If Wi-Fi is going to be part of 5G, those same characteristics have to persist. And I think that's going to really help to drive the timing of 5G or Wi-Fi as part of 5G. That said, I'm not as close to the standards group as Paul and some of the others, but September sounds really good to me.
Okay, good. 2 for September. Julie, you're the one who's
I'd love it
pushing
to be
this through
September.
Bristol,
I'd love
Bristol
it to be
City
September.
Council.
Yes.
What's your take on it?
On the assumption that listening to all of this sort of timelines, which I'm not that close to at the moment, from an aspiration, from a city point of view, it was very exciting yesterday because in our office we had the first broadcast over our 5G network into the office of our virtual line CCTV, and it was fantastic. And it ended up, because it's an open plan office, just everybody in the office having a nosy at what was going on. And the sad bit is, if we finish this trial in March at the moment, which is where it's funded to, we're going to have to turn it off. So assuming that this is going to be approved and it's going to be valued, the city wants to actually roll this out. So September sounds fine. Can we have September? I'd love it, because I think, from Bristol's point of view, I think we'd love to be one of those forerunners to get that out there, because, we know how many need this sort of technology in the safety arena and the first responders. As JR said, I think it's one of the few real business cases behind it at the moment.
Now, operators are putting a lot of focus on connected cities, enterprise and the consumer. And there are smart cities out there with varying degrees of what you might call smartness, but they do exist in one form or another, or they're being planned. Julie, you are one with Bristol who is involved in ensuring this all happens. What do you need to happen within the next few years to realise the vision that you have?
That's quite a large question, so I'm going to break it down slightly.
Okay.
Bristol's been on this journey for nearly 4 years now with Bristol is Open, and we've learnt a lot about the technology. We understand now enough of what it can do. We're trying to understand the business problem. And for us, we've realised that we probably hadn't put the people at the very centre of our research, and we've done that. So now what we're trying to do is match the technology to the actual business problems the cities are facing now and into the future. And for us, if we can make that behaviour smarter and we use technology to support that, and there's probably a very big piece that I'm afraid we're really harping on in Bristol now, is that what we've realised is that actually the research that goes alongside it should have been very focused on the ethics and the data, privacy, etc., because we're seeing that stopping the rollout of some of the smart technology. And so for me, those research teams in that area are absolutely key. That is the bit that will make the technology smart. When we know that we're delivering it responsibly, we've studied and understood the ethics and the data privacy, and then we will be using technology in a smart way.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody like to add anything else to that?
I think that's actually the key point, isn't it, with smart cities? It's that data is the issue, so it's how you collect, store, curate, and make that data securely available to the right people, and you have to get that right.
I'll add one thing. I was at the White House 5G Summit a few weeks ago, and I was sitting with Department of Agriculture, Department of Transportation, a lot of these different organizations trying to solve this, also back in the US. And one of the things that kept coming up is this public-private partnership that has to continue. That is a very important part of being able to bring this about. And when you think about, things that we're trying to do with data, the Department of Agriculture shared some data that being able to keep track of water usage and soil usage and being able to keep track of that, we're actually able to increase crops by numbers that we are staggering even in the last few years just by taking advantage of this technology. So part of that is the securing of that data, but it just as important is that public and private partnership so that you can get that data available to those farmers so that they can end up providing, better resources for the city.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Well, I was
going to
observe, I'm sure it's not the case in Bristol or even the White House. The challenge, I think, for smart cities is actually the commercial challenge, the operating model, and how you get the different stakeholders, different public and private actors within a city area to actually collaborate when the value is in the data, but the people putting the infrastructure are not necessarily seeing the data, and then finding a route where those who are investing in infrastructure or other services get rewarded. And that is quite difficult when you're starting from a point of view of distributed ownership of different assets and stakeholders and the whole thing. So that's one of the biggest challenges, actually, the operating model and the commercial model, in my view. But except Bristol, I'm sure, is not in that state.
No, I wouldn't like to say that actually it's not. You are absolutely right. Collaboration is totally and utterly key. And you know, even in Bristol, where I would say there's an aspiration to collaborate and work together, we still have those issues, we still have those discussions, and we're still trying to work out who gets a chunk of that data, and actually is it right for them to get a chunk of that data, etc. Those are all the underlying pieces that are making it challenging for cities to make that step change. But I think it's happening. I think we are at the real forefront of it now. I think, you know, I've been watching it for 5 or 6 years now, and I think smart cities have gone down a journey. They've looked at the tech, they've looked at the pieces that go along it, and now they're realizing if they don't collaborate, we won't actually scale it. We won't actually make the difference to people's lives, and that's the piece that's actually got to be at the center of all of it.
Okay then, let's move on. How important is the role that bodies such as the WBA have in driving convergence? Chris?
Well, I think they're absolutely critical, where you've got new technologies and new ways of working. One of the features of the Wireless Broadband Alliance is that it brings together a diversity of operators, fixed operators, cable operators, mobile operators, Wi-Fi operators, and the whole ecosystem of players, large and small, that make it all happen, whether it's the software, the clients, the hardware, the access points. So I think at the WBA, if I can use that as an example, it's small enough to get things done, but represented by enough significant players in terms of large companies, but also innovation companies, to actually make an impact. And that's what we need to do, is just make an impact.
JR?
Imperative, strategically imperative. If you take, again, next generation hotspot and all the work that the WBA there, and we partnered with other organizations too to make it happen, so they deserve some of the credit. However, when I look at like a business that AT&T had, where we were relying on an app-based solution to bridge the gap on authentication, connectivity, the registration, you know, success for us was like 7 to 10%. You move into an NGH environment, it's like 100%. And that drives a much better customer experience. You're giving customers coverage in places they didn't have it. You're giving them more bandwidth, and the vast majority of the time you're doing it at a much lower cost structure. It wouldn't have happened without the WBA. That's just a reality. So I think the journey we're on is critically important, particularly as things really start to come together the next couple of years.
Thanks. If anybody has anything else to say it now, but make it as briefly as possible, please, because we're running up against the clock.
I would just like to say, as a city that relies on everybody in this room doing what they do and getting that convergence to work, you're critical, absolutely critical to us.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd just like to say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and listening. And the panel, thank you very much indeed for some really great input. Would you please show your, not gratitude, but appreciation for the panel in the usual way. Thank you.